better.
Today we're going to take care of the reason why my oil looks like that. There we go. That is complete. Nice, cheap insurance for the truck. What's up, everyone? I hope you've been well. If you are new to the channel and you don't know who I am, my name is Zach, my wife is Tracy, and we, along with our two Siberian Huskies, are the Sunshine State Vikings. We like to do a lot of off-roading, overlanding, camping, and just getting outdoors in general for some awesome adventures. We also like to bring you guys along as well to share our story with you. And to bring us on those adventures, we have our 2014 Toyota Tacoma Loki here. He is an overland equipped off-road vehicle. Now, we actually just got back from some awesome adventures out in Arizona. We got to poke around some BLM land out there, just absolutely beautiful. If you want to check out those adventures, you can check them out up top or down in the description below. Now, before we left home for those adventures, to make the trek from Florida to Arizona, we wanted to take care of a couple of maintenance issues, and I'm glad we did, because we realized we have a pretty severe issue, and we're going to take care of that today. But let me get Loki flipped around and put into the garage. Check out these clips here and you'll see what our issue is.
Much better.
Those three clips there are from the fluid changes that we've done on the rear differential and axle on Loki. The first clip was from a week or two before we left for Arizona, and we decided to change out all of the fluid in the parts and pieces of the powertrain on Loki. So we changed out the engine oil, front diff fluid, transmission fluid, transfer case fluid, and the rear differential fluid. And that's when we realized that we had an issue, because our rear differential fluid looked like chocolate milk. Now, none of the fluid in your powertrain should look like chocolate milk, and all the other ones for Loki, they just looked worn out, but that one was pretty dang bad. So that's why I decided to change it again the day before we left for Arizona. I wanted to be sure we had the best oil that we could for the Arizona trip. And that second clip there, it looked a lot better. And I was happy that I decided to do it again, because it was still pretty nasty oil. The third clip was from today, and that oil there that was in that third clip just drove 5,000, 6,000 miles out for our Arizona adventures, and it looked a lot better. Really good oil. But I'm happy I'm doing it again today, because it is going to make that oil just 100% good, clean oil in there. And the reason why I wanted it to be 100% was because today we're going to take care of the reason why my oil looks like that. We're going to do that today with an ARB Differential Breather Kit. Now, it is silly that I have not yet done this, because this kit here is going to actually take care of the possibility of any of your powertrain parts and pieces looking like chocolate milk like that. And this is $80. That is cheap insurance to make sure you're not wearing out your powertrain, any of the parts and pieces prematurely, because replacing one of those is going to be very expensive. And this is just such a cheap and simple kit to eliminate that possibility. If you're thinking about doing it, it's a no-brainer. Just go ahead and do it. I'm going to show you how to do it today in this video, but to see how we've gotten ourselves into this issue, check out these clips here while I get the new fluid and the diff on Loki here. and that is going to take care of our dirty fluid issue in the differential. That is 3 quarts of just good quality gear oil put back in the differential there. Good peace of mind for me knowing that that's taken care of. But let me go ahead and show you now what is causing this issue and why it's happening that we're getting nasty mucky fluid in there in the first place. And then I'll show you the ARB Differential Breather Kit and explain to you how it's going to actually fix the issue. So here we are at the rear axle again. Coming up the left side, you see this little guy here, this little metal cap. That is the breather port for the rear axle. It's that little breather cap that's causing our issue. Now, I'm going to try to explain this the best I can, but keep in mind I am not a professional mechanic, and I could very well have some part of any of this wrong. If you know better than I do and I've gotten something wrong, please correct me down in the comments. Also, be sure to check the comments to see if anybody has corrected me on any of this. Now, what I understand that little breather cap is doing, it's allowing the air inside the housing to equalize in pressure, right? So you have a big metal case, and that case inside of there are gears that are spinning, they're experiencing friction and heat. And that is why there is oil inside, is to help lubricate the gears and to help cool all the parts and pieces inside down. Now, because you have a metal case and now you have oil in it, you have to seal that oil inside. So there are seals in various places and all of the parts and pieces on the powertrain. And there's also breathers in some sort of shape or form at the top of all of those parts and pieces. At least I do. I don't know if there are some that don't have them, but every single one of mine had some sort of breather on top. But as that piece experiences all of this heat, there is some air in there because that fluid only goes about halfway up the differential there. The rest of it is air. As it heats up, it's wanting to expand that air. And if it was sealed, it's going to want to push and pull seals and other parts and pieces that are, supposed to be staying fixed in place to help keep all the oil and stuff in. So that's what that little breather valve is doing, is it's letting that air expand and contract and equalize in pressure to outside. Now, as you're driving down, you heat all these parts and pieces up. As soon as you go and hit a big puddle, like say like a water crossing, you're now cooling that part down rapidly, and it's wanting to contract. It's wanting to suck in, and that's also going to want to move your seals and stuff. So that's especially why there's a little breather at the top to help let it equalize in pressure. Being that that breather cap is right above the axle, as soon as you go in water deeper than that axle housing, it's now sucking water in versus outside air. So the fix is to just take that little breather and just extend the line up as high as possible. That way it's able to breathe in air above the water, just like the snorkel on the truck. That's allowing the truck, the engine, to breathe air above the water. It's the same thing for all these parts and pieces. They just have to breathe air, and that is how you fix it, is by getting it breathing above the water level. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the ARB Differential Breather Kit and see how it's going to fix that issue. Here is the ARB Differential Breathing Kit and its parts and pieces. There is a large length of plastic air tubing. This is what's going to extend your line to a higher location for your parts and pieces to breathe through. Then there is a single manifold for all of the lines to join up. There's 4 ports here, 2 on this side and 2 on this side, and they all breathe through a single opening here that is run through this little ARB plastic filter puck. This is a standard thing for them. They also have this on their air compressors. It all runs through this one hole, through this little gold copper moisture filter, and that is going to accept all 4 lines. Now, say you didn't want to run a line for every single one of your parts and pieces. Say some of them are factory risen. You have also in here a couple of little sealing bolts where you can seal up several of these holes. There's also 4 pressure fittings here for accepting the lines into the manifold as well. And then, of course, some zip ties to help you clean up the install as you go along and run the air tubing to a higher location. One thing to consider with the ARB breather kit here is that they kind of give you a couple options as to how to do the install. You don't necessarily have to get everything ran up to that one manifold. You don't even have to extend all of them. You may find that some of your breathers are already factory extended. And that is the case with the second gen Tacoma here. The front differential and the transmission housing breathers are already actually extended up pretty high in the engine bay. The transfer case is right above the housing, and the rear axle is definitely the thing to focus on because that is just not high at all. But in order to get all of the parts and pieces extended to that one manifold the way I want to do it, I've had to pick up a couple extra pieces. That's an extra pressure fitting. You'll see why that is, because they only provide you 4 to get into the manifold, and I'm going to use another one in one other spot. And also an F-splice. This will make sense when I get to the front differential. But it is absolutely not necessary to do it the way I'm going to do it. But if you want to do it 100% and have complete peace of mind, feel free to copy my example here. But we're going to focus right now on the rear diff. So starting at the rear axle here, we're going to take this little breather cap that's threaded into the housing, and I'm going to just remove this fitting completely. It's a threaded piece into the top of the housing. And so here is the breather cap that we've removed from the axle housing. The reason why we're going to replace this is because you can't really get one of those plastic lines on this. It's a crimped cap on top of like a flared nipple, and there's just no way to get one of those lines on there. So if you were just using the ARB kit, you would have to use one of their pressure fittings instead of that. So that's why I had to go ahead and pick up an extra one, because I plan to use all 4 that come with the kit on the manifold there. So we're gonna go ahead and get this extra one here installed at the top of the axle housing. Now that we have that pressure fitting installed, we can take our plastic tubing and get it connected. Now this just presses into that black slot, and then you just press it down. And that's all that has to happen. These can be released by pressing down on the little plastic collar and pulling the hose back out. We're gonna go ahead and get it attached. That way it's fixed in there. And then we are going to stretch the hosing out to the front of the truck, to the engine bay with an estimate of length. Right at the back of the engine bay. So I'm gonna go maybe another 2 or 3 feet. And I think that should do us there. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this line here with just a knife. And there we go. Now we can get that strung out and run along the truck and up into the top side of the engine bay here. There's some lines back here that I'm trying to kind of just follow their pathway. I've got it stuck out here. I'm gonna send it back in again and keep on going. It's easier to do this just a little at a time. You wanna try to do this without kinking the hose. So just takes a little finessing just to get it run in a nice safe area. But the more patience you have with this process, the better off the install is gonna be. Okay, so after coming through the frame rail there, I pretty much routed it, continuing along the brake lines here, up and over the tire well, up into this part of the fender. And so I've got that line run up over the tire well, under all of this, And I think we're gonna mount the manifold right here. There's a nice clean high spot up against the side of the engine bay here where I can kind of keep an eye on that manifold and see that all the lines are still in place. Nice clean high spot up on the side of the engine bay wall. I like that. Let's go ahead and try to get one of the other lines going up in this direction. All right, so the next one we're going to try to take care of is the transfer case. That is the portion on the backside of the transmission. Just keep in mind, this is going to be incredibly hard to show, being how tight this is and low to the ground. This is just really hard to show you these angles here. Right, so we've got our transfer case and it's tied to the back of the transmission here. The transfer case, what it does is it's where your output drive shaft goes. When you engage four-wheel drive, it engages a second drive shaft over on the side there, giving you power to the front, and it drives that front differential. So there is a breather tube that I found in between the transfer case and the transmission. If you reach your hand up here and you feel around, there is one nipple that goes to a T here, and it's tied to another one over on the transmission. But then off of that T, there's just a little dongly hose here. And I don't know if this is actually the breather for the transfer case or the transmission. There's another breather for the transmission up at the bell housing. That's run up into the engine bay. But either way, this tube here doesn't need to be this low, sucking in water, whatever it does, whether it is a breather, maybe there isn't one for the transfer case. I've felt all around this thing and I can't find anything else. But regardless, I'm going to get this extended up to that ARB manifold because I don't like the fact that it's down here possibly getting water into whatever it is breathing for. So this one I did have to pick up a step-up splice, so this has to get spliced to a small tube to a big tube, and they're vacuum hose splices that I picked up. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that thrown on here, and we'll get a line run from the back or the transfer case here up to the engine bay in the same spot we got the other one. And so here is the little vacuum hose splice that I'm talking about using. It's got a small size for that vacuum hose up top, and this is a 3/16 vacuum hose connector side. So we're gonna get this big part shoved into our plastic line hose. Now this is meant for vacuum hose, which is like rubber tubing. So I'm going to use a little bit of heat to give me some help getting this expanded up and over there, because this line here is a hard plastic. So I think this is going to give us the assistance needed to get that shoved onto the end of our hose there. I know you can't see that. Maybe that works there. There you go. So I've got that shoved into the tip of our plastic line there, and then we'll be able to just shove this into our vacuum hose down there. And we're just gonna get that shoved right on into the tip of this vacuum hose there, just like that. And now we can run this up to the engine bay as well. So now that I've got this line here, I'm gonna run it straight over the tire well and get it to the same spot that the rear diff is going to. So the next one is the transmission. I literally cannot show you this one. It is impossible to get a camera to get any sort of shot of it. It is hard fixed to the back side of the bell housing. You just literally go to the front of the transmission where the bell housing is, reach your hand up and over, and you'll feel a hard metal line that then goes to vacuum hose and just runs up the bell housing up to the back side of the engine bay here. And where it ends off is a black metallic tube with like a little cap on it. There's no way to get a camera to look at it. I think I have maybe an okay shot of it, but there's just a little pinch clamp for that vacuum hose onto that hard black line. I'm just gonna pinch that hose clamp, work that hose off of that black line. It's just hard metal tubing, and I'm gonna work that hose off, get one of those vacuum hose line splices in there. Now, what I did to make this easy, because I knew I was gonna run into a bunch of different variables here, I just bought like a little vacuum hose connector assortment kit, and that's definitely helped with this install, because This hose is a different size than that other one was. So I'm going to do it the same way I just did the transfer case. I'm going to use a little bit of heat, shove it onto that tube, and then I'm going to reach my arms down here. I practically have to kneel on the engine to be able to get back there, just to be able to get my hands to it. But I think I can get my hands together down there and be able to work those two hoses together. And then I'm just going to run it up and over the same way I ran the transfer case here, up over to the tire well. Just the same way I've done all the other ones, and then we can work on the front drive, the front differential here, which is very high. It's up at the top of the tire well here, but like I said, I want to get everything breathing to the same spot. That's just my personal install. But yeah, I'm going to get this one taken care of, and then I'll show you the front differential here. Easier than I actually thought it was gonna be. That little pinch clamp went right over the line splice, held it nice and tight, ran it just the same way I did the transfer case. All that's left is the front differential, and that should be a little easier to show you. And here we are at the front differential breather lines. There are two here. One is for the front differential and one is for the ADDS. It's a little device up at the front of the front differential. I have no idea what it does, but it has a breather, and we're going to get it over to the ARB breather manifold, just like everything else. Now, because there were two lines here, what I did was I picked up an F splice, so I thought this would work out pretty good. I think it'll go on to those two lines here, and then we'll be able to come out with our 1 3/16. I don't think there's going to be anything wrong with running both of those to the same thing. But one problem I have here is this is all 3/16, and we've been noticing that our hard plastic line needs to be 1/4 inch. So I've got some extra vacuum tubing where I'm going to be able to extend this out, put a 3/16 to 1/4 inch line splice, and step it up basically to the to that plastic line, because we've got to get to that 3/16 plastic line to be able to get it into the push connectors. So I'll show you this when I get done, and then we'll be able to install the manifold. All right, so my F splice has gotten a little weird, so just bear with me here. All right, so on the front side there was the small line, and then next to it was actually a really large breather line, and our plastic tubing actually fits down inside of that nice and snug, so that's what we've got going on here. We've got our 3/16 vacuum hose, stepping it up to the 1/4 inch for the plastic line. I'm just going to need to cut this down low, and then that line will be able to slip up. Got a good length here for that line to go inside of that hose to take care of that one. And then out the single side here is the 3/16 vacuum hose with the step up connector to the 1/4 inch for the rest of the air line that's going to go up to the manifold. So this isn't really what I intended, but this is going to do just fine, and I think it's going to work out really well. So it's quite a few parts and pieces, and like I said, that little assortment kit is going to be really handy for all of this because it's had all these little connectors in there, and it's just been ready to go every step of the way. So I'm going to get this all attached up, and I'll show you the finished product here in a second when I get done with it. Unfortunately, I've gone and broken our only F-splice here. Gone and cut the hoses already. but that's not a problem. I am going to pick this back up tomorrow. I'm going to stop at the auto parts store on my way home and see if they've got a better solution for this fitting, but we may end up with just the same thing. I'll probably clean it up a little bit more tomorrow night, but hindsight, I mean, what caused the issue was I should have worked the 2 lines into the hoses for the differential and all of that before sticking this one on, because this hose is really not flexible, and having this all trying to manage this side, I just went and broke the clip. So I'll see you guys tomorrow when we go to finish up the install on Loki here. Okay, so we've managed to make it back the following day. Here is the new F connector that I've picked up from the auto parts store again. I'm gonna go ahead and put all my extra tubing pieces back on without putting it onto the length of hosing, and then we'll try to go ahead and get it back into the truck without breaking it this time. And so here's how it came out with that F connector tucked into these 2 lines coming from the front differential here. It was a little bit of a challenge, but I was able to get that 3/16 tubing inserted into this larger diameter tubing. Basically put a little coating of oil on that 3/16 tubing from ARB, and I was able to get this all the way up to the barbs of the F connector, or that line splice there, and it's a real snug fit. Then I was able to trim that small line and get it onto the other side of the F connector. And now all we're left to work with is the output part here, convert it over to our ARB line, and run the rest of the tubing up over the wheel well, back to that one spot where we're gonna be putting the manifold, and then all of our lines are gonna be in that area, and we can get it all put into the manifold and finish this job up. And so here's our manifold where all of the lines are going to come up into. This is the ARB Breather Kit manifold. I've gone ahead and pre-installed all of the lines into the manifold housing here. Definitely thought that that was going to be a lot easier with this piece off of the truck. And I've gone ahead and put the filter puck on the front of it, so that way when we go and try to line up and figure out exactly where we want this to sit, I can see the actual size of the manifold here, and I'm thinking right about here is going to be perfect for my situation here with Loki. I'll be able to take these 2 lines from the transmission and transfer case around the corner and up into the side there, push them on, and then these 2 from the rear diff and the front diff will be able to run up in just so, like that. The only thing that's going to be a little tricky about this is ARB provided 2 self-tapping screws, and they're just going to run through the housing in these 2 holes that just run through the block. They stick out about, I'd say about a ½ inch, quarter inch maybe there, and they only catch a couple of threads after the tapper. Now, this may look a little ugly at first, but keep in mind that the puck is going to be on the face of this, and you're just about not going to be able to see anything like a self-tapping screw. They did provide nice galvanized ones because this is probably an aluminum block, and you're tapping into steel and dissimilar metals. That's going to help keep this from corroding later on in the future for us. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to try to get this tacked in right here. I've got a little bit of a space issue, and this is probably going to be a little bit of a challenge, but I'm going to do the best I can. I'll probably be able to manage just fine to get that in there. But yeah, I'm going to get this tacked in just right here. right, and that worked out pretty well. I was able to get just enough to be able to tap this bottom one in, and once the hole was made, I was able to grab something smaller to be able to tighten it up by hand, like so. This is just a little hand ratcheting screwdriver type deal, and now we can worry about trying to get our lines worked around the backside here. I'm going to go ahead and trim these up to the same length. And then the idea for these back here is to just wrap around the backside. And then they made this super easy with these push connectors. All you got to do is just get that pushed in nice and tight. Double check that they're tight by trying to pull them out. That looks good. And then we've got the one for the rear differential here. And that will just get shoved in there like that. And then the front diff, we'll get that trimmed up just a little bit like so. And that one can get pushed in as well. Alright, and there we go. All of our lines are installed into the ARB Differential Breathing Kit manifold here, and all that's left is to throw on our filter puck. Just screw that on there. Doesn't have to be too tight. And there we go. That is complete. Nice, cheap insurance for the truck, and a super simple, clean install product from ARB as always. And with that, it is going to wrap up our ARB Differential Breather Kit install here. I hope you learned something about the process and what all is required in trying to do the breather install kit. I know this was pretty specific to our situation here with Loki, but we did try to go as in-depth as possible with everything that's required to do this. So like I said, I hope this video helped you out figure out your breather needs for whatever powertrain parts you're trying to protect. For us, it's peace of mind knowing that we tried to take care of anything that was possible downstairs. And with that, it's gonna wrap up this video. As always, I hope you have a great week, and we hope to see you on the next one.
To learn more about us and find out ways to help support the adventures, visit our website, sunshinestatebikings.com. And to keep up with our adventures, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification button, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Sunshine State Vikings.